I actually didn't find authortube until I'd pretty much finished the first draft of my first novel. And I'm really glad that I didn't know about it until then. And I'm not saying that I wanted to do it and I didn't need help from anyone. That's not at all what I'm saying. Maybe hearing about other people's writing processes and seeing what other people were doing would have put me off and might have made me think that, maybe I can't do it. Maybe I don't have time to do it. Maybe I don't have all this stuff and ideas and structural knowledge and education, all these other things to do it. I think I might have felt intimidated, like I couldn't write a book if I didn't learn all of this stuff first. So that's what this video is about today. I want to give you a little bit of encouragement and tell you everything I didn't need to write my first novel. I'm Zinnia, and I like to read and write. I'm currently drafting my second novel and querying my first. So, to start off with, I've made a whole list of things that I think you don't actually need to write a book. For some people, this might come across as a little bit of a hot take. And I'm not saying that the first novel that I wrote, the one that I'm querying, I'm not saying that that is like solid gold and like the best novel ever written or anything like that, but it's complete and I finished it in a pretty short amount of time. Just a few months. I started writing it in September 2024 and I started querying it in January 2025. So, had a pretty quick writing and editing process with that book. I could have done more editing, certainly. I think that's always the case. It's hard to know when a novel is finished and is it ever really finished? I don't know. The jury's still out on that. But the thing about AuthorTube is that there are a lot of great videos, there's lots of great advice, but I think sometimes you can have too much advice. And when that advice is coming from a position of authority, like someone who's already published a few books or someone who has a degree in creative writing, it can make you feel like you need to at least listen to that advice or spend some time studying it. And that might take some time away from your writing process. So that's number one on my list is that you don't need experience and you really don't need any advice. I think anyone who has the concept of language in their head can write a book. I don't think there are that many barriers to it. And you definitely don't need a degree in literature or creative writing or English. In fact, my degree's in French literature, but I think it was somewhat helpful to me in writing a book. I think it also held me back at times because I studied books that had so much purple prose and omniscient narrators and things that are just out of style right now. Because when I was at university, I was studying like 18th century things. My degree didn't focus as much on contemporary writing. So, yeah, some of the things I have in my head about literature are really old and dusty. But here I'm getting off track. Really, what I'm trying to say is you don't need a degree. You don't need experience. You don't need to have written and published any short stories or, even worked on your craft at all. I think you can go into writing a book and just write the book. You might have to do extensive editing afterwards. It might not be the perfect process, but I think for some people, they get so hung up on the idea of doing it the right way and structuring the book and reading all of these craft books first before they get started writing that they never actually write the book. And I was lucky in that I had an idea for a book and I just went home and started writing it that night and I just worked on it a little bit every day and boom, poof, it was done. And I didn't stop to question it. And I think that was the best thing I could have done for myself as a writer because then I consumed a lot of AuthorTube and writing related content while I was editing that draft and writing subsequent drafts. And even now, as I'm writing my second novel, I'm consuming a lot more craft related content. And I take some of the advice and I reject a lot of the advice too, maybe to my detriment, who knows. But really, I think the meat of the point I'm trying to make here is don't worry too much about all of this extra information. Focus on the information that you want to put on the page and just put it on the page. The next one is a really physical part of writing, and maybe a part of writing that some people don't have to think too much about, but it's about hardware. So When I started writing my first book, I had a really, really old, kind of junky laptop. And when I say old, I mean I bought it in 2018. And even in 2018, I don't think it was the newest or freshest model. In fact, it's so heavy. Like here, I can hardly lift it. It feels so heavy compared to the computer that I got for Christmas and that I'm using now. But yeah, this is my ancient Dell that I used to write my first novel. And I have kind of a sentimental attachment to this thing. I used to use it for online teaching. And yeah, now it's the thing that helped me write a book. But my point is, you don't need a new MacBook. You don't need a nice new computer or a cute little tablet to carry around. Any old machine will work, even a typewriter if that's what you have, or you can handwrite a book if you're really into it, if you really have the drive to do it. There should be no hardware barrier to writing a book. And honestly, I don't think I would have got a new laptop, but my husband saw me struggling with this old one and realized that I should probably have something, from this decade that would be helpful. And I do really love my new computer. I have a MacBook M2 and it's so nice compared to this slow old dusty thing. I would say that the new computer hasn't really made that much of a difference though in my writing process. It just makes it a little bit less frustrating because now I don't get blue screened and my computer doesn't randomly crash when I'm right in the middle of something. It doesn't take forever to boot up when I have an idea that I want to put down. Don't put off writing a book until you get a new computer or until you get this new thing that you think you need, or if you get a new keyboard, or you don't actually need any of that stuff. And I'm proof of that. And to kind of go along with that on the technological side, you don't need a special software. A lot of people like to use Scrivener. And granted, I've never tried Scrivener, so I don't know. Maybe I'm really missing out on something. And I've thought about maybe trying it for a video and comparing my experiences using Google Docs and Scrivener. Because, yeah, currently I use Google Docs and I also use Notion as an organizational tool to keep track of my goals and my self imposed deadlines that are kind of meaningless. And also, I use Notion to keep track of ideas for future projects so that I have them kind of all in one place and organized in like an aesthetic sort of way that makes me want to keep working on them. But I do really like Google Docs, and it's free and it's so easy to use, and it's something that's been with us for so long that it's easy. I know a lot of people use Microsoft Word too, but I like Google Docs because I can use it across different devices. I use it on my phone sometimes. And that's another good thing about Notion is it makes it easy to kind of jot stuff down if you have an idea and you're away from your laptop. As much as you might want Scrivener, if you don't really have the money for it, or if you don't feel like making the investment until you've really started writing and you're sure you're committed to writing, then don't get it. Just get started with Google Docs, and if you need to migrate later, you can migrate later. One more thing that you don't need that kind of lines up with the hardware and software tools of the trade is a dedicated writing space. I don't have anywhere in this apartment that's really mine, like for writing. I have this makeup table that I sometimes use to film videos, but the drawers on it are so low that my knees don't really fit underneath it. It's really uncomfortable. It's just not an ideal writing space. And late at night, when I have time to actually write, there is someone asleep in here. So that's really inconvenient. And then the other place that I have that's like a surface is the kitchen table, which is a really distracting place for me to write. As someone with ADD, it's kind of hard for me to write in the kitchen space because I'm surrounded by my kids' stuff. So even if they're asleep, I'm kind of thinking about like things I need to do for them, or like what I need to buy for the family, or like organizational stuff, or cook what meal planning for the next day, like all of these things. So I don't really have a dedicated writing space, but the way I work around that is that I do work at the kitchen table. I just kind of push through. But if I find myself getting really distracted, I will go downstairs and write in one of the community spaces in my building, like next to the pool or the community conference room. During the day, when my kids are occupied, I will go out to a cafe or a restaurant and work there, try to find a quiet place, go somewhere that's not busy so I don't get super distracted. So that's one way around it. I know that a lot of famous writers, like I don't know, people always talk about Stephen King's writing routine is that he has this dedicated space and he always arranges things in the same way and he does everything the same way. That's kind of my next point. Is like, is a writing routine really necessary? No. It might be very helpful for some people to create that rhythm and that pattern to kind of to condition your brain to know like, okay, this is time for writing, get into a creative headspace. I think having a writing routine is a little bit of a luxury. It might be easier for people who aren't a primary parent or caregiver for someone else. It might be a little bit easier to create a writing routine. I'm not saying that I can't create a writing routine because I guess I kind of do have one. It's like bedtime, bath time, put my kids to sleep. And then I have like a late night snack, which I probably should stop doing. I have a snack, and then I do one writing sprint, take a shower, do another writing sprint, go to bed. That's a writing routine. But you don't necessarily need to do that. You could write at different times of day. You don't need to write every day at the same time. Um, yeah, you don't need to go through the same motions. You don't need to be in the same place always. So if your life is hectic and maybe your life doesn't really allow you to schedule, dedicated writing time in a dedicated writing space on a routine basis, you don't need it. Don't let that hold you back from writing a book. This next point is going to vary so much between different people and lifestyles, but it's about time. I know that some people put off writing a novel because they just think they don't have time to do it, and maybe they don't have time to do it. That's true. Some people really don't have time. Um, if you're working multiple jobs and you have kids and money's tight, then yeah, it might not be the best idea at that moment to dedicate time to writing when you should be hustling to make your finances work. But I think for the majority of people who are thinking about writing a book, you're either in okay shape financially or you don't have that many people depending on you. But what I came here to say is that I'm living proof that you don't need big chunks of time to write a novel. I have two kids. One is 5 and one is turning 2 in August. So I have a really busy family life. My husband works a lot and has a pretty demanding job, and I'm okay with being the primary parent. And I do have some help from Miss T, but I have a lot of the mental load of the family on me. So that also takes up my time of like organizing birthday parties and making sure we have all the school stuff in order and, just keeping track of everything and activities and making sure they have clothes that fit, food shopping, cooking, all of these things that go into taking care of kids. So that eats up a lot of my time. I also have a part time job and I teach ESL online part time. And I like to get my nails done. I like to do little things for myself. So I end up with maybe not that much writing time in each day. Now I also want to make a YouTube channel. So that's eating into my time even more. But the thing is that I really want to keep writing books. So I make time to write books. I lose a little bit of sleep, and there are some days when I just can't write. But I make an effort every day to at least think about my manuscript while I'm doing something else or write just like 150 words. Every little bit kind of counts toward it, and it keeps that momentum going. And so then when you do get to a day when you have like 1 or 2 hours, you're still in the flow of the manuscript and you're able to jump in there and write as much as you can. And those big chunks add up. Before you even realize it, you're at the midpoint and then you're closing in on the final chapters and then you've done it and you've written that book. And yeah, the clock shouldn't be the thing that holds you back. So if you can make time to write, even if it's only once a week, just do it. I think a lot of authortube content, my own included, is really focused on things like word count goals and big writing sprints and, writing for 45 minutes to an hour. And maybe not everybody has that time. And don't make consuming this content make you feel like you need to be able to do that in order to write a book because you really don't. If you have 30 minutes a day, you could do that. Or if you have 3 hours a week, that works too. It's not about the quantity of the time that you put in, it's about the quality of the time and your consistency and your dedication. Another thing that I don't think is all that important, and maybe other people have said this too, is that your idea doesn't matter. It doesn't, you don't need to have a great idea. You don't need to have a unique idea. You don't need to have like a life-changing idea. Just have something to start with, a character or just a line or a phrase that you came up with that you really like, and you can build that outwards and just start writing. And once you start writing, maybe just pants a few pages of just stuff that's on your mind, and something in that will spark some creativity, and you keep carrying on with that, and eventually you will get to a place where you have something that you say, oh yeah, this could be a novel. I can build this into a novel. um, just today, in fact, my husband said something about the clock on his computer changing to a different year. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a really good beginning to a novel. And then I started thinking about all the different ways that I could take that and run with it and twist it into something else, and how that's, it's like kind of like a modern take on a Rip Van Winkle story. And I think that would be really, really cool. And that's kind of the other point that I have to make here, is that you don't have to come up with your own idea. Retellings are so cool, and I love a great retelling. So pick a story that you already like and try to think about how you can make that your own. It's really not about having a unique or novel concept for a novel. It's really about you choosing to do something creative. And yeah, maybe your first try is not going to be the perfect one. Like mine certainly wasn't. As long as you're alive, you have unlimited chances of writing something else. Don't hold back on writing your first book because you think your ideas aren't good enough. Nobody's ideas are really that great. It's about what you do with the idea and how you spin it and how you build it and grow it. And then eventually you'll come out of it with something that you're probably really going to be happy with. And my next little point is that you don't need anybody else but you. Maybe that doesn't sound that great. Maybe that sounds kind of lonely, but honestly, you don't need writer friends. You don't need a community. You don't need critique partners. You don't even really need beta readers. I mean, it's recommended, but you don't need people around you in order to write the first draft, especially. So don't feel like you're so isolated and you don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. Just open a page and just start writing. Don't spend too much time looking to your left and your right and seeing what other people are doing. And I know that's what authortube is really all about, is creating like a communal and shared writing experience, which is great. I mean, it's a great thing for a lot of people, and it can be really inspirational, but I think it can also be sort of intimidating. So take everything kind of with a grain of salt and don't get too much in your own head about it. And yeah, just try to focus on you and do the best that you can do each day and move yourself toward your goal, and you'll get there eventually. That's the whole point of this video, and sorry if it's been a little bit repetitive, but I really want to hammer that point home, that all of these things that people are talking about, like writing routines and equipment and software and, you know, methods and structures and craft books and all of these things, are good for writing. I'm not saying that they're not. They can enhance your process, definitely, but they're not essential. The essential thing is that you, as a person, want to do this thing, and the thing is writing a book. So you write the book. Don't worry about everything else. And kind of the reason I'm saying all of this is because I kind of went through life thinking, I can't write a book. I don't have any ideas for a book. I don't have the skills for a book. I don't even like writing. I don't have time to do this. I said all of these things to myself when I would like read a book. Essentially, I would read a book and I would be kind of in awe of the fact that somebody wrote this thing and had the time to write it and edit it and, pour in this labor of love into this book. And I thought, I could never do that. I don't have the time. I don't have the dedication. I don't have any good ideas. I don't, blah, blah. I don't have any of this stuff. And then one day I just kind of surprised myself and I just started doing it. And you can do that too. And if you've been in the brainstorming process for a really long time, or you're kind of slowing yourself down with studying craft instead of writing, or waiting until you get, a new laptop, or waiting for whatever, there's nothing to wait for. Stop waiting, just write. Maybe that sounds like kind of harsh advice, but it honestly, once you've written the first book, that kind of pulls that mental impediment out of the way, and you proven to yourself that you can do it. So there's nothing stopping you from writing another book and improving yourself over time, maybe adding in more steps to your process over time. Don't overwhelm your system with trying to do everything right the first time. The first time is about just doing it. So I hope that this video will help you to, yeah, put the words on the page and get from A all the way to F for finish the book. If you like videos like these, please subscribe, although I do tend to do a lot more vlogs on this channel. And yeah, check out some of my recent vlogs and start writing today. Bye.